I'd much rather be in Washington, Michigan than in Washington, D.C. right now.
The president's speech in Washington Township, Michigan last night.
Everyone else was in Washington, D.C.
Is this better than that phony Washington White House correspondence? Is this more fun? Very, very dishonest people. Fake news. Russian collusion. Give me a break. Comey's a liar and a leaker. North Korea, and a lot of good things are happening there. What do you think President Trump had to do with it? I'll tell you what. Like, how about everything?
I think actually it's a slam dunk, to be honest with you. You have to give the Nobel Prize to Donald Trump.
Members of the migrant caravan now illegally entering the U.S., sneaking in through a canyon notorious for drug and human smuggling.
Mexico and their government has been aiding and abetting these individuals to enter and invade our country. President Trump said it best, we got to fix some of these corrupt laws.
What's up with Griff?
Why is Griff wearing a sling?
Griff jumped in and hit the bottom of the pool with his shoulder right there. Boom!
My shoulder may not be in as much trouble as my ego.
And Griff slammed his shoulder into the bottom of the pool. You loved it, we loved it, and he is a trooper, I'll tell you that. And here he is.
A trooper.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Playing hurt.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm getting a text message from my wife saying you're doing pretty good, even though I can tell you're in pain.
You say you're
I'm
good,
like,
but
I'm
I was
trying not
touching
to
your
make
shoulder,
it
Abby. You were touching your shoulder. What was?
It was having spasms.
Pulsing. Right
Shoulder spasms.
Well, and like I've said before, I blame Ed Henry for this injury because you went 17 feet. And you
Ed
see
always
me
gets the blame.
in there. I just dived so far that I got arced too hard.
You went
even
after
though
it.
I knew to dive shallow as a big wave surfer that I try to be, I knew not to go too far forward with my heels up, and at some point, you just got to say, I'm going to
We've got Ed Henry on the show later on. We'll ask him a little bit about
I
that.
got to add some context to all this, Griff, because you are such a good person, and everyone knows that watches you. But you came in the makeup room yesterday morning before the show even started. That's you recovering in our green room yesterday with ice. You're sopping wet. But you came in yesterday morning. You said, I kind of had a rough night. The hotel, I turned on the faucet yesterday morning. It was dark brown gunk that came out. I couldn't shower. I couldn't brush my teeth, so you got a water bottle. Then you came here to get a Red Bull on the 16th floor out of the vending machine. No Red Bulls were there.
Wow.
I said, Griff, you're having a rough morning today. I really feel for you. And then that happened.
Well, thank you. Got to stay positive.
You're doing it.
An
You're the man.
Alexander Day is what you had yesterday, Griff.
Yeah.
And you're still here.
That's
You know,
right.
and as I said, you're making slings great again. I mean, you're pulling it off. You're looking good.
Thank you.
Newsman.
Well, I wouldn't miss it for the world because we got news coming fast and furious, and the president up this morning, and I believe possibly watching the show, Pete,
Possibly.
because he just tweeted, President Trump tweeted this just moments ago. Here are some of the tweets. Great evening last night in Washington, Michigan. The enthusiasm, Washington Township, I should say, knowledge and love in that room was unreal to the many thousands of people who couldn't get in. I cherish you and we'll be back. While Washington, Michigan was a big success, Washington, D.C. just didn't work out. Everyone is talking about the fact that the White House Correspondents Center was a very big, boring bust. The so-called comedian really bombed. At Greg Gutfeld should host next year and tag our own at Pete Hegseth. That because, Pete, you suggested
Well,
this.
I mean, I think the president recognizes a common sense thing when he sees it. I mean, it's so predictable. You said it, Abby. It's so predictable.
Comedy's
These comedians,
become so
they're all
boring
left
today.
wing. It's just muck. It was boring. It was smug. It was self-important. And as I said last night, I turned the channel to Gutfeld, and it was refreshing, real comedy. They're having fun. Imagine if he did it. It would be must-see TV.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it happens.
Unfortunately, these dinners end up being just tearing other people down, and it gets ugly, and it's not entertaining, and it's not funny. And you listen to Greg Gutfeld, he does make you laugh.
Yeah.
He's refreshing. You never know what he's going to say. So if you were not watching the White House Correspondent, which I imagine none of you were probably watching the
didn't miss
president in
anything.
Michigan last night, where really he is always in his comfort zone at these rallies. You can tell he's at his best. He loves being around the people that are passionate about the same issues that he is, and he talked about everything from North Korea to immigration to the economy. Here's just a little bit of what he said last night.
I'd much rather be in Washington, Michigan than in Washington, D.C. right now. That I can tell you. Is this better than that phony Washington White House correspondence? These people, they hate your guts. Shut. And then I'm supposed to... And what about Comey? Comey's a liar and a leaker. I did you a great favor when I fired this guy. Because when you look at what was going on at the top of the FBI, it is a disgrace. Two lovers, right? Lisa and Strzok. Look at how many of those top officials were fired or removed. Look at how these politicians have fallen for this junk. Russian collusion. Give me a break. If you listen to Maxine Waters, she goes around saying, we will impeach him. Then people said, but he hasn't done anything wrong. Oh, that doesn't matter. The denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. I had one of the fake news groups this morning. What do you think President Trump had to do with it? I'll tell you what. Like, how about everything? African American unemployment has reached the lowest level in history. Kanye West gets it. We will make America great again. Thank you, everybody.
It was an hour and 20 minutes of great television, a stem winder. It was entertaining, it was rousing, it was his element. And I think teeing up for 2018 as well. He's going to be on the ballot. His base has got to show up.
Great
so
point.
Talking about impeachment means if they win the House, they're going to try to impeach me, and they are going to try to do that. So a preview of the themes, you saw Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie come up on stage with him at one point as well, possibly part of a re-election effort. So a lot of campaign themes coming out.
And one of those people that will be on the ballot is Jon Tester, the senator in Montana. And you know that name because he was all over the media this past week trying to tear down Ronnie Jackson, who was up to run the VA, is now withdrawn his name. Well, President Trump pretty upset about how all that went down and is calling for Tester to resign. Here he was last night.
Senator Jon Tester of a really great place, Montana, who voted, by the way, in favor of sanctuary cities, who's weak on the border, didn't vote for tax cuts. He took a gentleman, what they said about this great American doctor, Ronnie Jackson, an admiral in the Navy. He served 3 presidents. President Obama said he was fantastic. President Bush said he was fantastic. And Tester started throwing out things that he's heard. Well, I know things about Tester that I could say too. And if I said them, he'd never be elected again.
Now, just to give a little context here, Tester is certainly going to have a tough race out there. He was at the turn of January, turn of the year there, down almost 20 points. President Trump won by 20 points. I'm just looking at some latest polls our Brainerd's pulling. And, you know, the problem with Tester is he lives right around 50%. Nick couldn't quite get 50% in the last election. And, you know, now that he is losing some credibility on these allegations, any of these voters that are undecidedly, and I would put about 25% looking at some of these numbers at the sort of middle of the road. This could be a problem for him.
And he's willing to tear someone else down for his own political gain, Pete.
Tester poses as a moderate. He always wants to look like one, but he votes with Chuck Schumer and the Democrats lock, stock, and barrel. He's part of the resistance. And he put out a statement trying to defend himself on this one. This is what Senator Tester said in responding to President Trump. He said, "It's my duty to make sure Montana veterans get what they need and have earned, and I'll never stop fighting for them as their senator." I know a few Montana veterans who take great issue with that, including Rob O'Neill, the guy who shot bin Laden, has been tweeting a lot about this. It's not about veterans. It was about taking down Ronnie Jackson, and he doesn't like what the president's doing, trying to fix and shake up the VA. Jon Tester is totally against giving veterans choice and options, and so he's willing to smear a man who would have been for those things rather than just giving him a chance in committee to explain where he stands. And you pointed out, you don't have to go to the media. No. He could have gone to the White House with these concerns. It wasn't about that. It was about politics for Jon Tester. Trump understands that. And again, CNN, when you go crazy about them saying, oh, I know things, you haven't learned yet that President Trump knows how to make or critique as well as anybody. You say things and you don't back them up, that's a bad thing.
Facts matter. Yes. And having real sources, naming those sources, by the way, can always be a good thing. So Charlie Hurd, a Fox News contributor, was on our show this morning, and he said that President Trump put a bullseye on Jon Tester. Here's what he said.
You could not ask for a more sterling career, and then suddenly he meets with political Washington and the media in Washington, and he gets thoroughly slimed. What Jon Tester did was he just went straight to the media and just dumped the whole garbage can of dirt on this guy without doing any sort of investigation. Donald Trump has put a bullseye on this guy, and he is going to go after him.
Yes, and well-deserved, because there were options. He could have quietly gone back to the White House, Pete, as we've been talking about, saying, I've got concerns about Ronnie Jackson. Can you please look into this before you put him up for a hearing? He didn't do that. Griff, he went right to the media and said, here are allegations that I've heard about this guy.
And as you say, Abby, you know, talking about anonymous sources, John Tester claimed in an interview with Anderson Cooper that he had 20 sources that Tester's not named that had these allegations. Well, we have seen everyone from Dan Bongino to former Presidents Obama and now President Trump that have all said this is a guy of stellar character. And now it'll be interesting to see whether anyone else in the media continues to push Tester, say, give me 5 of those 20 names that says that Ronnie Jackson is unfit to be it. But, you know, as we mentioned yesterday, the damage is done. It's a blood sport in Washington, and this guy's career.
Let me help out Charlie Hurt, though. He didn't, for the literal media out there, didn't mean bullseye. No one's putting an actual bullseye in anyone's chest. We're talking metaphorically and politically. I just want to help them out. They can't figure out literal versus metaphorical, telling a story. Maybe one day they will.
Well, this should be a wake-up call, because lives are ruined because of this. So it's important to get those facts right. All right, so much more to come on the show. I do want to bring you some other headlines that we are following closely this morning. A nationwide manhunt for an accused deputy killer is now over. Authorities arresting this man, John Williams, with the fallen deputy's own handcuffs.
I felt that it was fitting where he killed my deputy, Corporal Gene Cole, and he was brought to justice using Cole's handcuffs.
Williams was found at a camp in Maine after a 4-day manhunt. He's expected to appear in court later this week. Police say the 29-year-old killed Somerset County Sheriff's Corporal Eugene Cole. You can see him here, a 13-year department veteran. He leaves behind a wife and 4 adult children. Also this, the first members of that caravan of migrants now flooding into the country. The group of about 400 setting up shop near San Diego on the Mexican side as children and pregnant women are caught sneaking in through a passage notorious for drug and human smuggling.
We don't know where these people are going to end up. And we don't know their intentions. There's really no way to see their true criminal records in the country of origin. So we don't know what record or criminal record they have in the country that they're coming from.
Well, in a statement to Fox News, Chief Patrol Agent Rodney Scott warns in part, saying, we expect everyone to enter through our front door and answer questions honestly.
Yeah, we're going to be tracking this story all morning long, because this caravan is right at the border today, crossing as a group, holding a press conference, and of course our Border Patrol agents watching and ready. Certainly could be a showdown. We'll see.
We'll be interested to see what happens. All right, President Trump tearing into James Comey over his memos. Byron New York says the fired FBI director is leaving a trail of confusing statements over how he handled them. He's here to explain it next.
And he was paralyzed playing football, but Chris Norton told us on Fox and Friends back in 2015 that he had a big goal to accomplish.
Now, after my graduation walk, I guess do a walk for a wedding.
This is an amazing story. Chris and his fiance now made that goal a reality, and they will join us live. You do not want to miss this story. It is just ahead.
Wow.
You watch Comey, and you watch the way he lies. And then he's got the memos. I wonder when he wrote the memos, right? I did you a great favor when I fired this guy.
President Trump tearing into Jim Comey about his memos. And as our next guest accuses Comey of, quote, creative accounting for leaking those memos in his new op-ed, raising the question, is Comey telling the entire truth about these memos?
Here to explain it, Fox News contributor and Washington Examiner chief political correspondent Byron New York. Hey, Byron, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
So who's telling the truth here? What do you make of this?
Well, you know, one of the bigger things Jim Comey is doing, the president said Comey is a leaker, and there just seems to be no doubt at all that Comey leaked one of his memos not long after he was fired. He leaked one of his memos to a friend for the purpose of the friend giving it to the New York Times. There just seems to be no doubt about that, but Jim Comey is now denying that he is a leaker. He has redefined leaking to mean disclosing classified information. And while it certainly would be a leak if you disclose classified information, leaks are much more than that. The classic Washington definition is, let's say the secretary of something or the other has prepared a controversial new policy, and someone who opposes it inside the organization gives a draft copy of it to the New York Times, and there's a big controversy. That is a classic Washington leak. Nothing is classified. It's not classified information.
Great point.
It's a leak.
Great point. Well, this our own Brett Baer had a great interview with James Comey, had an exchange that amplifies this. Watch.
I don't consider what I did with Mr. Richmond a leak. I told him about an unclassified conversation with the president. I didn't consider it part of an FBI file, all the things that I talked about with Anderson.
You wrote it as an FBI director. It was a work product.
No, it was not.
You said in the memos, I said, I don't do sneaky things, I don't leak, I don't do weasel moves. But, I mean, we can argue what a leak is, but that's a leak, isn't it?
It's not.
Is there such a thing as an unclassified conversation between the president and the FBI director? And then... Not a leak?
Well, that's a good question, but as far as the FBI is concerned, as a law enforcement and intelligence agency, there's also confidential information. You're not free, if you're an FBI official, to just go out and reveal all sorts of things about cases that are going on inside the FBI. Nothing classified about them, but you still can't talk about it. Another thing that Comey told Brett was that he considered this like his diary. It was a personal note he wrote to himself, and like a diary. And let me tell you something. Members of Congress, up until they were released 10 days ago, members of Congress were trying to read the Comey memos. The FBI treated them like a state secret. Very few members of Congress were allowed to see them, and the ones who were had to have an FBI minder in the room. They were not allowed to take notes or make copies. These were treated like the nation's biggest secrets.
How does he say it with a straight face?
I don't know. I don't have a straight face right now, actually.
There you go.
But Comey insists, and I think he's obviously very sensitive. He is to the question of being a leaker. But I just think there's no doubt that he got it out.
Great point, Byron. Thank you very much. That's
Thank you, folks.
James
Thank you,
Comey
Byron.
meant this to come of his book tour. Anyway. He was paralyzed playing football in 2010, but told us on Fox and Friends back in 2015 he had a big goal to accomplish.
Now, after my graduation walk, I guess do a walk for our wedding.
Wow, now that inspiring couple made that goal a reality. Hear their incredible story when they join us live. There they are, next.
We are back with a pretty incredible story. Chris Norton was paralyzed in a football accident back in 2010, but just 4 years later, he was able to walk at his college graduation with the help of his fiancée. They shared that moment on Fox and Friends back in 2015. Take a look.
Now, after my graduation walk, I guess do a walk for our wedding.
So that goal has now become a reality. Last week, after exchanging their vows, Chris and Emily Norton walked down a 7-yard aisle together as newlyweds. 7 yards for the 7 years since his accident. So joining us now to share their inspirational story, Chris and Emily Norton. And of course, their story will be issued in People magazine. But Chris and Emily, it is so great to have you with us this morning. Chris, congratulations on accomplishing that goal. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I feel so great. Just to know that I'm married to Emily is just amazing. So the 7 yards walk was just icing on the cake.
So the incident happened, the accident happened back in 2010. And Emily, you guys met online dating in 2013. A lot of people would say, Emily, this is someone that was told that he would have a 3% chance of feeling anything from his neck down. What about Chris inspired you that told you, you know what? I love him. This is someone I want to marry.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about him that inspires me. He is the hardest worker I know. He's so determined, and it's incredible to think that back to that moment when we first met. And I think back, if I would have just made that split-second judgment that he's in a wheelchair, life's gonna be too hard, and I didn't see Chris for who he was, I would have missed out on the best thing that's ever happened to me. It just goes to show that it's so important to see people for who they are, because we are all facing challenges. I have challenges, you just can't see them. So it goes back to that of just spreading love and kindness and seeing people for who they are.
That's such a good point. This is a story about strength, but also, Chris, a story about love and what two people can accomplish together. Would you be where you are today if you had not met Emily?
Oh, absolutely not. Emily has been such a support to me. Like, she's literally been by my side ever since I met her. She's really carried me a long ways, and I'm the man I am today because of her and my faith in God. So I'm just unbelievably appreciative of her and what she's brought to my life. And with love, there's so much that it opens up the doors for the possibility of hope and miracles.
Chris, we're watching this video together of you walking down that aisle. It just gives you chills. I want to put it back up on the screen. I want to ask you what is going through your mind in this moment as you're walking down that aisle and you have the woman you're about to marry holding you in her arms, and the first time you've been able to walk that far. What are you thinking in that moment?
I was unbelievably grateful. Like, I have Emily by my side. I'm thankful for my faith. And to know like how far I've come, I'll never forget that day, October 16th, 2010, laying face down, motionless. And to see where I'm at today is a really special to me. So I'm just very grateful, and I focus on what I've been able to progress and the things I have in my life, the things I can do. It's so easy in life to focus on what you can't do or what you've lost. And for me, I've made a habit to focus on the good things in life. And I think that's a habit that we all can make for ourselves. So that moment was just so much gratitude.
Emily, I love what you said about we all have challenges. We all have things that we're dealing with in our own lives. They might just not be as visible like Chris's are. What advice do you have for all you've been through in the past few years of overcoming things, of inspiring yourself to keep going when life feels like you can't go on one more day?
Yeah, there are so many times when you might feel down and feel like this is the end. And I've had times where I felt broken and felt like there was no hope, and I know Chris has as well. And just from these last few years with Chris, I have learned so much that when you have God, when you work hard, when you just trust that you can take what you're going through and you can turn it into something so incredible that can reach so many people. Anything is possible when you can just think about it in those ways. I know I look at Chris and everything great that has come from his injury and something that felt like such a terrible thing at the moment for him. We are able to give back and do more than what we ever thought was possible because of those difficult times, and we're way better off because of it.
It is amazing what you two do. And you have fostered 5 kids on top of all of this. Chris, quickly before we go, do you have your next goal?
My next goal really is to share through my motivational speaking and through the 7 Yards documentary film that is being told about my story, is just share everything that went into from the worst day of my life back in 2010 all the way to the best day of my life last weekend on April 21st. So I'm really excited just to share those moments and those experiences and help other people overcome their adversity.
Chris, we are so proud of you. And Emily, you guys inspire all of us. Thank you for all that you do and for just reminding us to live life every single day. Chris and Emily, great to have you on this morning.
Thank you
so much.
We appreciate it.
All right, and of course, the new issue of People hits newsstands nationwide this Friday. And for more video, you can, of course, go to People TV. What a great interview. So fun to see them both. All right, coming up, his secret meeting with Kim Jong-un stunned the world. A new Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, just revealed what it was like. I cannot wait for that. Also, then some conservatives walking out of the White House Correspondents' Dinner after a series of vile attacks against Team Trump. Ed Henry was there. He joins us live. He woke up early for us. And Pope Francis greets Katy Perry. So why is she hanging out with the Pope after a years-long legal dispute with nuns? We're going to explain all of this. That's coming up.
We have pride in our history. We defend our flag. and we honor our flag. We put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we do that proudly. And we stand for the national anthem. We believe that a strong nation must have strong borders.
All right, let's now bring in Ed Henry, Fox News chief national correspondent and author of 42 Faith, the rest of the Jackie Robinson story. Ed, we love your book. We love you, and we are grateful that you woke up so early because you were not in Michigan. You were at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which we will get to in a moment.
Sure.
But just quickly, your thoughts on the rally. You hear President Trump in this moment. He's talking about the flag, patriotism, the issues that he's passionate about, including immigration.
Yeah.
People criticize him for not going to the White House dinner, but this is what his base wants. He was hitting right at the heart of what they're wanting to hear.
Yeah, what a contrast when you saw that mean, hateful, vile, I don't even want to say comedian, whatever she was last night. I was there for it. It was disgusting, despicable. Sarah Sanders should get an apology from the White House Correspondents Association. I'll get into that in a minute. I was there. It was despicable. And what a contrast to what the president was doing, talking about issues that people actually care about. And I'm going to do something that's very hard for me to do right now. I'm going to make some news. I'm going to say that Pete Hegseth was right and I was wrong, because we went back and forth a week or so ago. Yeah, this is big. This is huge. This is exclusive to you.
Should we get the breaking news banner up?
Put that on. This is a Fox News alert. I said to Pete, and I meant it, because I think the president made a mistake some time ago when he said that the media is the enemy of the American people. Things like that do go too far, whether Pete wants to admit it or not. However, where I was wrong, and I see you getting back on the couch, I'm peeking at the monitor, where I was wrong was I said, hey, I think the president should be a better man about it. And the media does their attacks. He should go to this dinner, try to make peace. It's gone. I was wrong. He's never going to go to this dinner, and he shouldn't. What happened to Sarah Sanders last night was disgusting, and I say that as a former president of the White House Correspondents Association who oversaw that dinner in 2013. It was awful. And Pete is right.
Ed, your apology is fully accepted, enthusiastically accepted. No, but Ed, you did note that you were the former president of the White House Correspondents Association. You were responsible for this dinner. I won't make any swamp jokes. It just is what it is. But to make that's a powerful statement coming from you, who you understand the power of the press. And you're saying, in this case, an apology is at the very least needed for what was said last night.
By the briefing tomorrow, I hope that the White House Correspondents Association, which I'm a card-carrying paid member of still as a former president, and it's still somebody who covers the White House for Fox News. Bottom line is, by the briefing tomorrow, I hope that the association sees the need. I'm going to call some of the board members tomorrow morning. I spoke to the president last night after the dinner, Margaret Talev, and I told her to her face, I said, look, this is not your fault, because there is a First Amendment in this country, whether you like it or not, and the comedian can end up saying what they want, however vile it is. But the association has a power and can. I told her that I thought it was disgusting, it was vile. What I didn't say, which I'm going to call her tomorrow and say, Margaret, look, you guys should put out at least a statement, an apology to Sarah Sanders, who you work with professionally. She's a professional woman, and dare I say, if this had happened to a woman who was serving, as spokeswoman for Hillary Clinton as president, there would have been an uproar and outrage, and rightly so. It was to go after her physical appearance, to say some of the things that happened. It obviously is so far beyond the line that I hope and pray the association apologizes to Sarah Sanders. And in fact, when I was on the board a few years ago, we had Helen Thomas made some vile comments about Jewish people in this country and around the world. And at first, we were thinking, why are we getting involved in these comments? And we thought about it. A lot of members called me. I was, I think, vice president at the time, and we ended up putting out a statement. It was controversial. Some of our members were very mad at us for attacking Helen Thomas, but we said, you can't say this is outrageous. You represent the White House Correspondents Association. You shouldn't do this. And so bottom line is, the comedian did what she did. The association should be better and should say, we apologize to Sarah Sanders.
Well said, Ed.
Absolutely. Well, but it's been suggested by the president this morning on this show as well that maybe if you had a conservative comedian once or twice, like a Greg Gutfeld type or somebody, maybe the White House would come back. One time in your memory, has there ever been a conservative?
No, and look, I picked the comedian in 2013, and it was Conan O'Brien, and I made a conscious point, by the way, without attacking anyone who's there now. I knew that Conan O'Brien understood the room and understood that he could be funny, he could poke fun at President Obama, who was president at the time, but I will admit that as somebody who was representing not just the association on that dais, but Fox News, I knew that if I hired some comedian who was going to just rip President Obama to pieces, that would look bad for me, it would look bad for Fox, and it would look bad for the association. I knew Conan O'Brien was a professional and that he would never have done to Jay Carney or Josh Earnest or President Obama what that comedian did last night.
All right, Ed, quickly,
Period.
I know Griff wants to get to something else,
Yeah, please, Griff.
but what was the mood, though, in that moment when Sarah Huckabee Sanders was getting so personally attacked?
I would say that the first couple of minutes of this comedian's routine, whether it's popular or not, I'll say I thought it was funny at the beginning, but then the F word, other words just kept piling on, and then the personal attacks. And in the room, I talked to a lot of media people who you would think, and in fact are, sharp critics of this president, and they were telling me, terrible, pathetic. They couldn't believe it.
And I want to blame you for what happened here, but I want to give you one last one, which is I was trying to explain in previous hours why Sarah Sanders is the person that helps the press and why it's so beyond the pale.
I was president of the association, I would fight with Jay Carney in the briefing and whatnot, and then in private, we would go behind closed doors, and I said, Jay, we need access to the president for, this event tomorrow. You have cameras closed to it. And to his credit, while we battled a lot, Jay Carney, Josh Earnest, they would open things up. And Sarah does the same thing. She fights with the media day to day. You see it in the briefing. But she does things to open it up for all of us and protect the First Amendment. And by the way, we invited her to be the president's representative. We invited her to dinner, to our event, and we treated her like dirt. It was disgusting. I'm actually getting more angry just thinking about it. We invited her. She represented the president. She's on the dais. She was treated with disrespect. And we
Ed, you're going to lose your voice. We're going to have to let you calm down.
But Ed, I'm on Team Griff, by the way. I am outraged also about what happened yesterday. Pete Hegseth is so angry about losing to me week in, week out. That when Griff tries to compete, and Griff did a great job, I'm on Team Griff. Pete, he's a father of three. To injure him like that, I'm disappointed.
Thank you, Ed. See, Washington can stick together.
You guys do stick together. The swamp sticks together.
It's a swampy move, I guess.
It's typical. The outsider's got to be alone. We got to fight.
Well, I
by
miss you guys. I'll see you next weekend. But Griff's doing a great job, and I hope he feels better.
It's great to see you this morning. Thanks for waking up.
Good to see you guys.
See ya.
We had other photos to share of Griff being injured, but stick with us later on in the show. We've got more. There's more to that story for sure, and more to that sling if you haven't heard it already. All right, well, quote, remember Saylor, exclamation point. The president highlighting newly pardoned Christian Saucier in his case against James Comey. It came out in a tweet just a while ago. Calling out a double standard after the former Navy sailor was prosecuted for mishandling classified material. That sailor is here to react next.
Did you leak other things through Mr. Richmond?
Yeah. I'm smiling, Brett. I don't consider what I did with Mr. Richmond a leak.
We can argue what a leak is, but that's a leak, isn't it?
It's not.
President Trump calling out fired FBI Director James Comey for not knowing what a, quote, leak is. Trump even tweeting at the end of that tweet, you'll see highlighted there, remember Saylor. Now, some people may not have understood what that meant. We caught on it right away. He's referencing former Navy sailor Christian Saucier, who was prosecuted for accidentally mishandling classified material. This man right here, who served our country, also served a year behind bars for taking photos of classified areas in a nuclear submarine before President Trump pardoned him this spring. And Christian Saucier joins me now to address this. So, Christian, first off, when you saw that tweet, did you know what he was referring to? And what do you make of that comparison? James Comey gets away with it. You take some photos and you're in jail.
Well, absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me on, Pete.
Of course.
And you're absolutely right. I knew exactly what President Trump was talking about because him and I spoke about it when he called me after he pardoned me. And, it's very upsetting that this person, James Comey, who prosecuted me to the fullest extent of the law and destroyed my life for low-level, classification, and I never disseminated it like him. I never gave it to somebody to publish in the New York Times. I simply took 6 pictures to have as mementos of my service, and they destroyed my life. And here he is going on a national book tour and bragging about it on national television that he, leaked classified information. It's disgusting.
So, Christian, let's be clear. You took photos. You were leaving that particular assignment. You wanted them as mementos. You've admitted it was a mistake, but you didn't try to give them to reporters or share them on the internet or post them on Facebook or give them to the Russians. You simply wanted to take them for your own mementos and admit that mistake. Why this double standard, then, for someone who is admitted, I'm giving these memos to the press?
Well, you know, it's you know, reminiscent of Hillary Clinton. You know, these high-level members of you know, politics, and James Comey is a politician. I mean, clearly, they don't take any responsibility for their actions. You know, they think it's a joke. I took responsibility. I stood up like a man and admitted my mistake. You know, albeit a innocent mistake, I still made a mistake. I mishandled classified information. They never got released. Nothing ever ended up in the hands of the Russians, you know, or on the computer of a pedophile like Hillary Clinton's emails. But yet still, I was prosecuted and sent to prison and my life destroyed.
Well, Christian, James Comey also happens to say that sometimes a conversation between the president and an FBI director isn't classified. And he also was able to look people in the eye and say, that's not a leak. A leak is only when it's classified information. You know, I wrote these memos on my government computer, but no, they're not FBI material. They're actually my diary. What is it about the psychology of someone that they must believe their own rhetoric in this particular case? Why does he believe himself when he knows it's patently false?
I honestly believe that James Comey is a narcissist, and, you know, he's capable of justifying his own actions regardless of the, you know, after effects. Just like Hillary Clinton, you know, the ends justify the means to them. James Comey clearly knows the law better than anybody else, according to James Comey. He interpreted the same law to prosecute me completely different when, you know, not prosecuting Hillary Clinton. So James Comey knows better than the U.S. Code of Justice and the American people who should be our president and, you know, who breaks the laws, and he gets to decide, apparently.
The laws, according to James Comey. A lot of common sense there. Christian Saucier, thank you for your time, and I hope the next chapter of your life is going very well. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on.
You got it. Anytime. All right, well, up next, President Trump says the days of other countries taking advantage of the U.S., they're over.
It's very hard for us to sell stuff into the European Union. It was put there to take advantage of the United States. You're right, not anymore.
So the man who led the Brexit campaign out of the European Union for the UK, Nigel Farage, here on that next. And Saturday Night Live alum Rob Schneider says the show's politics, like last night's swamp dinner, is ruining the joke. The producer behind the hit series, Kevin Can Wait, is here to give us his take next hour.
It's very hard for us to sell stuff into the European Union. It was put there to take advantage of the United States. You're right, not anymore.
That was President Trump assuring thousands of voters in Michigan last night that those days of being taken advantage of by other countries, they are over. Here to weigh in, former UK Independence Party leader and Fox News contributor Nigel Farage. Great to have you on, as always, Nigel. First, your response. Look, this is a message that resonates with so many people today. The president saying we are no longer going to be taken advantage from other places. They need to step up and they need to play their part.
Yeah, I mean, look, the European Union sees itself as a rival to America. Doesn't see itself as a place that wants to do America any favours. So whilst they're quite happy to sell lots of German motor cars into the US marketplace, they're pretty reluctant to take many American products, especially agricultural ones, beef, etc. The real point here, of course, is that there's a deadline fast approaching. The proposed American tariffs on steel and aluminium, that is all got to be sorted out at some point during the course of the next week. And this is how Trump negotiates. He negotiates by talking tough and by waiting for the other side to come to him. But the other side know all through this that he is prepared to walk away. It's how Trump does business. And I have to say, it's pretty effective. And it's something the European Union's not used to.
Is it going to work? Is this strategy going to work with the EU?
This is the first time I've seen someone stand up to them. But the other side know.
Well, you stood up to him. The Brexit movement stood up to him as well. I mean, can you stand up to them and still succeed?
Well, we did stand up to them, but right now, of course, we have the negotiations for our withdrawal deal. And I wish the British Prime Minister would do a bit more of what Donald Trump does and stand up and talk tough. And hey, it's working in Korea, isn't it? So if it's working with Kim Jong-un, I reckon it'll work with Brussels.
Well, I got another story for you. Got to get your comment on real quick. The Muslim mayor of London, his name is Sadiq Khan, has sort of put out a tweet after the president has announced that he's coming to the UK in the near future. This is what the mayor of London tweeted. He said, if he, meaning President Trump, comes to London, he'll experience an open and diverse city that has always chosen unity over division and hope over fear. He will also no doubt see that Londoners hold their liberal values of freedom of speech very dear. So the resistance continues on your side of the pond.
Yeah, his liberal values, his belief in free speech is so great that actually he doesn't want Donald Trump to come to London at all. And when he does, he will support some idea of mass protests against the president's very presence here. These people are deeply hypocritical, and I would much rather that this London mayor, Sadiq Khan, was dealing with the fact that homicide is up 44% this year in London. Get on with that, Sadiq Khan. Stop virtue signaling, stop playing games. Whether you like Trump or not, America is a key ally, and for the world, in terms of defense and security, the UK-US relationship matters a whole lot.
Yeah, those Syrian airstrikes just a couple weeks ago were a huge reminder of that. Nigel, always good to have you on the show this morning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, some conservatives walking out of the White House Correspondents' Dinner after a series of vile attacks against Team Trump. Mercedes Schlapp was one of those people. She joins us live at the top of the hour. Stick around.